Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes. You
Courtney and
clearly got a
I,
lot to say.
we just talked for 45 minutes and then somehow we hit record and we're like, I have no topics. I have nothing in my brain. I have absolutely no
Nope.
anything going on up there?
Lights are on, nobody's home,
I feel like it's,
basically.
I feel like I've been that way for a while. Like my brain's just kind of mush at this point. I was trying to talk to
Hmm.
Courtney and also paint my nails, and I was like, hold on, I have to like focus on painting this nail, and I can't talk at the same time because those two things are, connected
Yeah,
in some way, and my brain just is like malfunctioning.
short-circuiting squirrel
Yeah.
brain.
I think it has a lot to do with a 3-year-old who never stops talking. When I say
She does
never,
talk a lot.
she talks so
You know how
much.
there's that debate on like what your inner monologue is? Like, do you hear someone narrating it? Do you ever? You don't have to wonder about her because it's like a vocal
Yes.
monologue.
Oh, yes. She tells you every single thing that goes through her brain. And we're in our why phase. Everything is why. And just like I'm just sitting down trying to take a pee. And I'm like, okay, I'll be there in just a second. I have to go to the bathroom. And she's like, why? I'm like, what do you mean why? Because I am a human being who has bodily functions.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what
why
bodies do. I don't know what to tell
why do
you.
you have to go potty when you have to go? Like I'm just like, how do I answer these questions?
Why are you asking me this? Yeah, I feel that because there's something I'm not going to talk about on the podcast yet happening, and it's making me try to understand things I don't understand whatsoever. And I just feel dumb all the time now. All the time. Like I know nothing. I feel like Michael Scott, and he's like, "Can you just explain this to me?" Like I'm a 5-year old. Like that
Exactly.
is how I feel. Like this means nothing to me. None of
Yeah.
this makes any sense anywhere.
You're like, I need it broken down into like 18 bullet points and
Yeah.
stop using the big words that I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that.
Um, my birds are still hatched. They're still in their
Oh,
little
good.
nest, getting
Good.
fed. And pest control guy came and got the bee's nest today.
Oh,
That
okay.
thing was that big.
Oh, wow.
Huge.
That's scary.
Yeah, it was very big. And now we're not allowed to go onto our balcony for like a day because
Oh,
the bees are back and like mad that they can't
yeah.
find it. But I didn't water my plants beforehand, so
Oh, and it's
and they're
been very,
looking
very hot, so they
and
probably need that.
they're looking a little droopy, and I'm really
Yeah.
nervous, but
Yeah, our plants are
we'll hope for the best.
my hostas are not are not doing so hosta. I'm so sorry.
Well, if it makes you
Anyway.
feel better, my tomatoes keep getting, I don't remember. My dad has told me the name for it, but I just call it rotten bottom in an English accent. They get rotten bottom.
Not to talk too much about inside jokes that y'all listening don't know about, but Andrew's obsession with
Water
saying water
bottle.
bottle. Yes. So now he's got
That's
Millie
kind of
saying
where that's kind of where it came from, is him saying water bottle. So one time, especially after watching like Vanderpump Rules, like I would talk like DJ James Kennedy all the time. And Kevin would get so annoyed. And it was like last year, I was like, why do they have rotten bottom? It just made me laugh thinking of someone going rotten bottom. Oh God.
Oh God. And to our British listeners, we are so sorry.
I know.
Please don't
Sorry.
leave.
I'm so sorry, but
But yeah, Andrew,
you can make fun of my southern accent. It's
yes,
fine.
please do. He has Millie saying it now, and I'm just like, I can't with the two of you.
Yeah.
Like they're ganging up on me. It's like two Andrews in my house. It's a lot. But I
Oh,
guess we
after all
didn't.
that.
We do have a couple of updates.
Yes.
So Gypsy Rose today announced that she is pregnant. So
Mhm.
good luck to her and to her future family.
Yes.
I don't know
Yeah.
any more professional ways to.
Yeah. Um, I just hope, since, she has been released, like it is hard. She was stunted of her
Yeah.
youth a lot, her growth, her emotional maturity. So I hope this helps her. I know she's kind of had a few different relationships and she's got out all that. But hopefully maybe having a baby will heal some part of her and
Yes.
help her.
Hopefully. Hopefully it will not be a continued cycle that we see
Yeah.
sometimes. And hopefully she's getting the mental health services that I'm sure she
Hmm.
desperately needs because of everything that she's been through. So yeah, so good luck to her, and we hope that that will go well for her.
Yes. Um, Another update is that Texas has set an execution date for Robert Robertson for October 17th, 2024, despite overwhelming new evidence showing his daughter Nikki died of natural and accidental causes. So in 2002, Nikki had been chronically ill and had a fever, and she suffered a short fall from the bed. And then hospital doctors viewed Robert's reaction to be like suspicious and lacking emotion. Like they didn't think he was reacting how a father should be reacting. But the hospital doctors know he had autism. And as
Mhm.
we know, autism does affect the way that you show emotion, and it's not always exactly how you would expect from someone without autism to react. Like it
Mhm.
is just different. So Robert was charged, convicted, and sentenced to death in the death of Nikki, saying, and they say she died from shaken baby syndrome, but new evidence shows that is not the case. She did not die from shaken baby syndrome. It was natural, accidental causes. And the Innocence Project actually took on his case. And so his attorneys have filed for a brief in opposition at the district attorney's request for the execution date. So even though the Innocence Project is taking on his case, there is proof that he like did not kill his daughter. They still set an execution date.
Ugh, just like how I and
Yeah.
we talked about this a lot in oh, we had done a lot of episodes now. There was the nanny who was accused,
Mm-hmm.
Louise something.
Woodward? No.
That sounds
Wood
right.
something? Woodward?
Let's double check. I think Louise Woodward. That sounds right. But yeah, Louise Woodward, we talked about a lot in that episode that new research has come to light in the last several decades about shaken baby syndrome and that it's not as clear cut as they originally thought
Mm-hmm.
it was. Like it used to be like, oh, if the brain shows this, then this is 100% what happened. And now they're like, oh no, there are actually other things that could make testing look this way that we can't automatically assume that that's what it was. So that's just horrific that here we are still in 2024 and that's what
Mm-hmm.
they are saying, and that they have set an execution date for very soon. So
Yeah.
hopefully, there will be a stay of that, and the Innocence Project, can move forward with that.
Yeah. This dang ice cream truck every night between 9 and 9:30 comes through.
It
Every
is too
night.
late. It's dark now. It's too late for that. It's too late for the
What?
ice cream truck.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Anyway.
So now we will get into today's episode, which I'm sorry is a really sad one. This one's rough. So the So our sources for this episode were an episode of 2020 called The Deadly Ride, a couple of articles from WWMT, an NBC News article, a Freep article, a People.com article, and an article from Wood TV. So Kalamazoo, Michigan is halfway between Chicago and New York and is a typical Midwestern town that's kind of like on the larger side, but still has a small town feel. There are a lot of businesses and restaurants, and many parents are drawn to Kalamazoo to raise their families. But on February 20th, 2016, a mass murderer went on a shooting rampage in Kalamazoo and shook the community. He would later try to blame the Uber app and said that it possessed him.
Is that supposed to be Chicago and Detroit?
Probably.
I was like, how is Michigan halfway between
Wait.
Chicago and New York?
Oh my God. You let me get that
Sorry.
far before.
I was fact checking myself because I
Oh
had to look it
gosh.
up because I was like, well, I don't want to be mean. But
You know,
now I'm looking it
just
up and I was like, how is Michigan halfway between Illinois?
Okay, my brain. I told you my brain's mush. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
All right, I'm just gonna re-say that one sentence and then I'll just like
Okay.
cut it earlier in the. Good God. Okay. Detroit? Nope. New York. Like they're not even like.
I was like, Illinois and Michigan, like, touch. I feel like you have to leave all of this in at this point.
We're too far in. We're too far in. Okay.
It's too funny at this point to not leave it in.
If you guys were screaming at your phone here a minute ago, being like, "What are you talking about?" Yes, Kalamazoo is halfway between Chicago and Detroit.
Oh, okay, sorry. We knew it was going to be serious. We had to lighten it up somehow, I guess.
Had to get it out in the beginning, before we get into the rest of the story. But now that you have a thorough understanding of Midwest geography, oh God. I love how even like reading it back, I just didn't even. I'm like,
That's right. That checks.
it's just like read off the teleprompter.
You're being Ron Burgundy right now.
Now that I have tears literally running down my neck because I cried so hard. Saturday, February 20th, was a warm day for the Midwest, with temperatures rising enough to melt some of the snow. 45-year-old Jason Dalton was an insurance adjuster and a father who had been married for over 20 years. He grew up in Indiana and moved to Kalamazoo while he was in high school. He was captain of the football team. He got good grades. He liked to work on cars, and he would speak his mind, but he never like caused anyone any trouble. And as an adult, someone broke into his home and stole some of his valuable tools, and he started collecting guns after that. All of his guns were legally purchased and owned, and he didn't own like an alarming amount of guns, especially for the Midwest, like not unusual for one person to have multiple guns. I'm sure other countries are hearing this being like, multiple guns is always alarming.
Yeah.
But not in these parts. So on the afternoon of February 20th, Jason went to some local gun stores with a friend. He was very friendly with the manager, like remember chatting with them. He bought a holster and a jacket. And Jason had recently started driving for Uber to earn some extra money for vacation. So he headed out that afternoon to drive for Uber and picked up his first ride at 4:21 p.m. So Matt Mellon had left his car at a friend's house the night before, so he called an Uber so he could go pick it up. And Jason Dalton arrived in his silver Chevy Equinox with his dog in the back seat. So Matt sat in the front seat because of the dog, which I feel like it's kind of weird to take your dog on an Uber ride, but
Yeah.
so the ride started out normal, and then Jason got a phone call. He answered it through the car's Bluetooth, and it was his son asking if he would be home for dinner. So the call lasted like 2 to 3 minutes, just kind of a very normal, father-son conversation, like, hey, are you going to be back? Here's what we're having. Are you going to come eat with us? Whatever. But Matt said Jason's demeanor changed after hanging up the phone. He said he became a completely different person and just started driving erratically. He like slammed on the gas, started going like 70, 80 miles per hour on these like back roads, like running stop signs. And he even sideswiped a car at one point. And Matt keeps trying to get him to stop and like let him out. He's like, you just hit a car. Like you passed my road. Like just constantly trying to get him to stop. But he said Jason was very like calm when he responded. Like he wasn't like irritated, was not like, he was just like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't hit a car. Like, everything's fine. What's wrong? Like, why are you freaking out? And so, again, despite Matt's objections, Jason did pass where he was supposed to drop Matt off. But he did finally slam on his brakes, and Matt, like, jumped out of the car. A witness named Casey, who lived in the neighborhood, heard loud screeching brakes and went outside and saw this man either, she thought, jumping or being pushed from a car. She couldn't really tell. Like, it all happened so fast. And she made sure that Matt was okay, and Matt called 911 to report the incident. So the 911 operator asked him if he needed a police officer to like make contact or if he just wanted them to be aware of the incident and on the lookout for the car so they could catch him in the act of driving recklessly. So Matt's like, no, like I don't need like an officer to come out here. Like, I just want to make sure that you all are aware that like this guy is out here like driving like this.
Mm-hmm.
So when Matt got home, he reported the incident to Uber electronically, but there was no way to like call Uber and reach an actual person to report an emergency back in 2016. So that was kind of really all he could do at that point.
Even I feel like these days, like getting a hold of the support is like so
Yeah.
difficult sometimes. Like we had this issue in Tampa, I think it was Lyft. Like some of our party, like the woman showed up with her kid in the car and they were like,
Yeah.
"You said you could hold four people." And then she was like, "No, I can't. My kid's in the car." So then they were like trying to report it and they were like, "Well, you took the ride, so nothing we can do." And it's like, "What? What do
Yeah.
you
It
mean?"
just makes no sense. Yeah. It shouldn't be that hard to like get a hold of someone and get a resolution to something. So after letting Matt out of the car, Jason went home, got a gun, put on a bulletproof vest, and then started taking more rides for Uber. At 5:32 p.m., 15-year-old Macy ordered an Uber from the Meadows apartment complex. So Jason arrived at the complex, was like speeding in. He stopped and he rolled down his window and he asked a young woman if she was Macy. So the young woman was 25-year-old Tiana Carruthers. She lived at the Meadows apartment, and her daughter had some friends over, and they had asked to go to another friend's house who lived across the street. So Tiana was walking like her child and several other children across the street when Jason pulled up to them. Tiana told him like no, like she was not Macy, and said he seemed kind of mad and drove away. So Tiana continued walking with the kids, and Jason then turned his car around and drove back towards her, and then just held his gun out the window and started shooting. As soon as Tiana saw the gun, she shoved the children back and told them to run, and Jason continued shooting, and Tiana was hit multiple times. She tried hiding underneath cars, but Jason is just like still sitting there shooting because she's like, oh, if I like hide, like eventually he's gonna drive away. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
like the middle of the day in this like very
Yeah.
popular area. But he just like his car was sitting still and just like kept shooting. So eventually Tiana pretended to be dead and Jason drove away. So after he left, several neighbors called 911 and came out to help Tiana. And she just like kept yelling and asking if the children were okay. Like her neighbors were like asking, you know, like where she was hurt and like everything. And she's just like, I just need to know that these children are okay because she's just like shoved them
Yeah.
all out of the way. And so one of the neighbors came out and said that the children were fine. She had them all inside, like they needed to take care of her now. So bullets fractured both of Tiana's legs, her arms, and punctured her liver, where she still has the bullet today. Tiana later said while she was being shot at, she just kept telling herself that she was going to survive. She was going to see her daughter go to gymnastics class and see her sister walk the stage at graduation and pick out prom dresses, just like thinking of all these things that were coming up that she's like, no, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
live and do these things. Tiana underwent multiple surgeries, treatments, and rehabs over a 3-year period, obviously after being shot so many times. So witnesses had reported the shooter as a middle-aged white man driving a silver Chevy Equinox, and the 911 operator who spoke with Matt earlier called him back to get more information to see if this was the same guy who had been Matt's Uber driver, which I also was like kind of surprised at because I feel like usually in cases like this, it's like, oh, how did no one notice that it was the same
Mm-hmm.
person or like there was two like similar situations or whatever, but like that 911 operator was like, oh, wait a minute, I just got a call
I
earlier about something
remember,
like
yeah.
this. Yeah, and actually called Matt back. And so Matt sent them Jason's name and a screenshot of his photo from his Uber profile. So Jason continued driving erratically and ran a red light, hitting a car in an intersection where a married couple had been going to get ice cream, but both occupants of the other car were okay. At 5:45 p.m., Jason called his wife and asked her to meet him at his parents' house. When they got there, he tucked a gun into her waistband and told her she might need it. He said he wasn't going to tell her what he was going to do, but when she watched the 11 o'clock news that night, she would know it was him. Jason told her he was being shot at by cab drivers who didn't like Uber drivers, and that's why his car was damaged. Okay.
Oh, you know the common issue. It's the new gang violence today is
Yeah,
cab drivers versus Uber drivers.
exactly. He was acting very strange, like wouldn't make eye contact. He also told her to stay at the house with the kids and not leave and to not go to work or take the kids to school on Monday. And remember, this is a Saturday. His wife said his behavior was like very unusual for him, and he then left his parents' house in their dark colored Chevy HHR. He went back home and switched guns and then continued driving for Uber. So at this point, police are out looking for a silver Equinox. But of course, now Jason has switched cars, but he's still picking up people for Uber. So he like tells them that he was having car trouble and that's why he's in a different vehicle. So he's like showing up and they're like, oh, I'm supposed to have like a Chevy Equinox. And he's like, oh, it's me, but like I was having car trouble. I'm in this other car now.
Hmm.
And he did pick up and drop off several more riders without incident, like just normal, drove them for Uber, took them where they were going, which is wild. So, 53-year-old Richard Smith had gone to the Kia dealership with his 17-year-old son Tyler after the dealership closed so that Tyler could show him some trucks that he had seen there earlier in the day that he liked. Tyler's girlfriend Alexis Cornish had ridden with them as well, and Tyler's sister Emily and their mom Lori were both at home. Tyler played soccer and had the same carefree personality as his dad, Rich. He was a senior in high school and also attended Van Buren Technology Center for a marketing entrepreneurship. And Rich had been a pipe fitter for over 30 years and had spent the last 4 years working as a construction manager. He married Lori in 1992. Rich, Tyler, and Alexis arrived at the Kia dealership at 9:58 p.m. and got out of their car to look around at the trucks. And Alexis did stay in the car because, like, it was late, it was cold. She's like, I don't really care about trucks anyway. Like, I was just along for the ride. I'm just gonna stay in here.
Hmm.
So Jason Dalton pulled up in the Chevy HHR, got out of the truck and walked up to them and asked what they were looking at. So they said this blue truck, and then Jason just pulls out a gun and starts shooting. He shot them 16 times, hitting one of them 9 times and the other 7 times. So this whole time, Alexis is hiding behind the seat of the car so that he couldn't see her. Jason then tried to open the door of another car, like on the lot, but when it was locked, he just walked away, got back in his car, and drove away. And Alexis actually didn't have a cell phone. So when she was like peeking up and making sure the shooter was gone, she had to get out of the car and then get Tyler's phone from his pocket to call 911, which is just like,
Which must be so scary because you're like, I
yeah,
think they're gone, but are they gone? Like,
exactly. And then
ugh.
like your boyfriend is like here bleeding out and you have to like get in his pocket to like get his phone to call for help. And it's just, oh gosh. So a witness who had been driving by and saw the whole shooting called 911 as well. Like again, these are like, I mean, it's 10 o'clock at night, but it's at a
Hmm.
Kia dealership, like on this main busy road. It's not like anything is like hidden and he's just walking out in plain sight,
Yeah.
shooting these people 17 times, getting back in his car and leaving. So an officer arrived and did have to pat Alexis down for weapons, like make sure that she wasn't involved, like asked her like what she had seen. She said the man had gray hair, but she didn't get a good look at him. And unfortunately, both Tyler and Rich were both pronounced dead at the scene. A police canine picked up Jason's scent and tracked it from where the victims were found to past the car dealership where it disappeared, so they assumed that he got into his vehicle there. At 10:21 p.m., a 911 call came through about 2 cars being shot in the Cracker Barrel parking lot. And when police arrived, they found 62-year-old Mary Lou Nye in her minivan and her friends 60-year-old Mary Jo Nye, 74-year-old Dorothy Judy Brown, and 68-year-old Barbara Hawthorne in a car next to the van. So the 4 friends had gone out that evening to a theater performance and had dinner at Cracker Barrel first before going to the theater in one car and then returning to the Cracker Barrel parking lot to pick up the other car. So Mary Jo Nye was a teacher, and her sister-in-law, Mary Lou Nye, was retired from the DMV. Mary Jo created an adult literacy program in Southwest Michigan and was president of the Literacy Council of Calhoun County. And Mary Lou had also worked at a church daycare after retiring and had been married to her husband Christopher for over 40 years. Judy Brown was a caseworker for senior citizens. She had 2 sons, Jeff and Rob, and Barbara was retired from the Kellogg Company.
Barbara was still alive and conscious when police arrived, and while they are helping her, Barbara told him to help the girl first, and it was then that they noticed someone moving in the floorboard of the car. 14-year-old Abigail Kopf considered Barbara her adopted grandmother and spent a lot of time with her and her friends, and she had been with them that night and had been shot in the head as well. And police got her on the first ambulance that arrived on the scene, and Barbara was also sent to the hospital, and the 3 other women were pronounced dead at the scene. So, surveillance footage from the Kia dealership has shown a dark colored Chevy HHR, and witnesses from the Cracker Barrel shooting describe the same kind of car. After this, Jason continued driving for Uber and taking rides, just shoots these people and then goes and picks up more people. And also, I did not know Kalamazoo was popping on these Uber rides. I
Apparently
mean,
so.
he's getting a lot of Uber rides this
Yeah.
night.
Yeah. But also just so bizarre that in the middle of this like shooting rampage, other
You
people
just
you're just like
go,
picking up and taking where they're going.
it must be so eerie to be those other people and be like,
Yeah.
I was in that car that night.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
so Abby's parents were contacted from the hospital and told to get there as soon as possible because she wouldn't make it through the night. And Barbara's nephew was also contacted, but he initially couldn't get into the hospital because it was on lockdown. No one knew where this mass shooter was or where he would go next. And eventually, a doctor came out and told Barbara's nephew that she didn't make it. A few hours later, Abby flatlined, and medical staff started doing CPR on her in front of her parents, and they said she was gone and unhooked her from the machines. They put a blanket up to her neck because they were going to prepare her organs for organ donation. And then Abby's mom held her daughter and told her goodbye. But as she held Abby, her mom thought she heard a heartbeat and told the nurse. Everyone rushed back in, hooked Abby back up to the machines, and her mom asked her to give her a sign if she could hear her, and Abby squeezed her hand. So it looks like Abby is still alive. Thank God her mom hugged her.
Like that's my whole thought when I was watching this. I'm like, what if her mom in that moment was like, "Oh, like I can't like touch her."
Hmm.
Like what if no one had noticed that this girl's heart was still beating? Like
Yeah.
how is there no malpractice suit going on in this case? I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah. That is crazy. And the media actually had already reported Abby's death at this time. So the media was already like telling people that Abby had passed away, but she is still alive. I guess because it is a Saturday night in Kalamazoo, there were a lot of people going to restaurants and bars and taking Ubers. So there were just a lot of people out. The media had reported that a shooter was driving around in a dark Chevy HHR, and a few of the riders that Jason picked up that night joked with him and said, "You weren't the shooter, are you?" And he told them no, which is again like eerie.
Yeah, very much so.
Another group of girls noticed that the car was a different one from the one Jason had in the app, and they refused to get in the car, which I would probably do the same. I'd be like,
Same.
this is sus.
I'm like, I don't know about this. Yeah, like I always
Yeah.
check the car, the license plate. I make them tell me my name,
Yeah.
all the things. I also thought it was funny that it was the group of girls that didn't get in the car and then the guys were like, "Oh, haha, you're not the shooter, are you?" And I'm just
Yeah.
like, that tracks.
That tracks, yeah. And police pulled over 8 or 9 Chevy HHRs that night looking for Jason. At 12:36 a.m., an officer radioed in that he was driving a black HHR coming from a bar downtown that he believed was Jason. Several other officers pulled up in different directions until Jason stopped. They approached the car expecting a shootout, but Jason surrendered peacefully, and he had both a gun and loose bullets in his pocket. So Jason was taken into interrogation where he was very soft and passive. He seemed calm and normal. Detectives tried to build a rapport with him and asked him like how much sleep he got the night before. He said he had been awake for more than 24 hours. They asked him if he knew how many people he'd killed that night, and he said he pleaded the fifth. And as he got more comfortable with the detectives, Jason finally opened up and started talking about Matt Meelan, his first passenger of the day. He said he started speeding and hit a car, and that Matt jumped out and he drove off as fast as he could go. They asked him about Tiana, and he calmly explained everything he did, just like it was like a normal day. Like there was like no emotion. He was just like, this is what happened in like a flat tone.
Which it's so eerie to watch like the interrogation because he is just like, "Oh, and then I did this and then I stuck my gun out the window and then she was there and then I did this." And just like he's literally just recounting anything and
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
yeah. Um, and he said he believed he dumped the whole magazine in her. He said he knew she was dead because how could you survive that many gunshots? And he showed no emotion while describing the murders he had committed that night. Jason said when he approached Mary Lou Nye in the Cracker Barrel parking lot, he asked her if she could spare $1 to make America great again. And she said she didn't have $1, and then he shot her. So he said he then shot into both vehicles and that he thought he shot a child as well. And his voice lowered when he spoke about Abby, and he did seem remorseful about shooting her, but no one else. Even though he shot at Tiana, who had children behind her too, I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, like it doesn't make any sense.
He said he wasn't a killer, but he knew he had killed people that night, which, like, I mean,
He has a very
crazy.
different definition of killer than
Yeah.
the rest of us, apparently.
Yeah. Detectives asked him if there was any connection between him and any of the people he shot, and he said no. They asked why he had done this, and he responded, "If you guys only knew, it would blow your mind." Well, let our minds be blown. Like, tell me why.
Right.
Like, let's see if it will. Like, come on now. Jason then started telling investigators about how the Uber app had taken over his mind and body. He said when he first logged on that night, he saw an Eastern star in the app, and when he tapped that symbol, a devil horned cow head popped up. The Uber logo at the time was a U and could have maybe looked like it had horns on the top. Jason told police he knew it seemed unusual, but that he pressed that button and the app changed from red to black when he got an assignment. He said when the Uber app was in black mode, it literally had control of him. He said it would ding at him, and he believed one ding meant yes and two dings meant no. So the dings would tell him whether to kill someone or not. He said when he was pulled over by police, he had reached for his gun, but the app dinged twice and went from black to red, so he had control over his body again and surrendered.
So yes, if you are slow blinking right now, we are
Yeah,
as well.
same. Same.
Like,
Jason Dalton had no criminal record, no history of mental illness, and no major life changes or problems that would have indicated he was capable of doing something like this. Abby had surgery to put a plate in her head because the bullet shattered her skull. And she was in a coma for over a week, and then she woke up. She asked her mom what had happened to her, and her mom had to tell her that she'd been shot in the head. And Abby suffered from memory loss and would ask her mom several more times what had happened to her. So her mom had to endure giving her daughter that news over and over again, which must just be so hard for like your daughter just keeps being like, "What happened to me?" And you keep having to
yeah,
like tell her like over and over again, like have her reaction to that, comfort her, like so hard.
exactly.
Abby eventually regained her memory, but did lose some memories of her life before the shooting. She was in the hospital for 2 months and then spent months in rehab learning how to walk and use her arms again. Jason had his first court hearing on May 20th, 2016. Tiana was testifying about Jason shooting her repeatedly when he started shouting nonsense. He acted like a completely different person from the interrogation videos. So if you remember, like he was super calm, no emotion. Now here he is in this court hearing and just like screaming at her. And Tiana became very upset and broke down on the stand, and Jason had to be forcibly removed from the courtroom. A couple of years later, a month before Jason was set to go on trial, he was recorded in a phone conversation with his mom saying, "It's over. I stopped it." So, several psychiatric professionals examined Jason and found no signs of mental illness, and many believe he was trying to establish an insanity defense, but then realized it wasn't going to work. So, they don't think the Uber app was actually controlling him, or that he actually believed that, or that he couldn't
Hmm.
control his shooting in the court hearing. Like, he's just trying to get this insanity defense.
Exactly.
In January of 2019, while jury selection was underway for a trial, Jason Dalton surprised the court by pleading guilty to 16 total charges, including 6 counts of premeditated first degree murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. The guilty plea was against the advice of his attorney, who believed he should have gone to trial with an insanity defense. And on February 5th, 2019, Jason was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now you can reach 911 directly through the Uber app, and there is a critical safety response line that goes directly to Uber, but those features weren't launched until 2 years after the shooting. Barbara had always wanted to go on a hot air balloon ride, and her niece took her ashes to Sedona in a hot air balloon. Tyler's sister and Rich's daughter wants Tyler and Rich to be remembered as loving, compassionate people who were taken too soon and not just remembered as victims of the Uber mass shooter. Lori and Emily think Jason took the easy way out and only pleaded guilty so he wouldn't have to spend weeks being reminded of the terrible things he did, and they wish they could know why Jason did what he did and why their family was targeted. Lori Smith helped pass legislation that created a statewide public threat alert system, which warns the public of an immediate local threat through their cell phone, very similar to like an Amber Alert. And she also formed a charity called Forever Strong that plans to create memorial soccer fields to honor victims of the shooting and create a place for the community together. They also host a peer grief support group. Tiana Carruthers became a motivational speaker and started her own business, Shiro with a Message. Abby continued to face challenges from the shooting. She contacted MRSA and had to have the plate in her skull replaced after the infection. And she had to deal with a lifelong traumatic brain injury, ongoing headaches, and depression from losing her grandmother and being injured in such a horrible way, like the ongoing trauma and PTSD from being shot, like
Exactly.
a lot going on there. She wasn't able to return to school until 2 years after the shooting, and even then, it was only a few hours a day. And that is the horrific murders of Richard Smith, Tyler Smith, Mary Jo Nye, Mary Lou Nye, Barbara Hawthorne, Dorothy Judy Brown, and the attempted murders of Tiana Carruthers and Abigail Kopp.
Just,
Terrifying.
yeah. I think that, like, the weirdest part of this whole thing is that this man had no prior, like, any kind of indication.
Mm-mm.
Especially, I mean, like, he's 45 years old. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like usually these types of shooters are, like, younger. And, like, for you to have gotten to that point in your life, like, he was a father, he had a job, he'd been married for over 20 years. And then all of a sudden to do something like this when
Mm-hmm.
you had no, any previous, like, red flags, it's just wild. And,
Yeah,
like, nothing
it's
had happened. Like, I feel like in cases like this where it like comes out of nowhere, it's like, oh, well, like they had, had a death, they had had a divorce, they had like some major life change that then it's like, but like literally nothing that anyone can come up with that would have led to this
yeah.
man doing something like this.
And then like there's no like all of these professionals like examined him. They're like, there's no mental illness here. And it's just like
Yeah.
out of nowhere, just out
Yeah.
of like pure evil. Not to sound like stereotypical like
No,
saying
but
that, but it's
yeah.
like,
What other explanation is there? And the
yeah,
fact that he was picking up and dropping off other people, no problem.
yeah,
Like, and I don't know if part of that was him trying to set up this insanity defense. He's like, oh, well, I can claim that, like, they told me
yeah,
these people were okay. But, like, none of the people that he murdered were actually people who had called him for Uber. So that doesn't even make any sense. It's not
yeah,
like, oh, the app, like, showed this one and said, like, oh, you have to kill this person. Like, he just
yeah,
came
that's
upon
true.
these other people.
It's it's so weird, and there's just absolutely like no logic, no reason, absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Ugh, just so horrific. And then you have the Smith family, obviously, that lost a father and a son. You
Mm-hmm.
have Mary Jo and Mary Lou Nye, who her husband lost his wife and his sister at the same time.
Yeah.
And Abigail's family, who had to deal with everything she went through, in addition to losing Barbara. Like, you just have so many families who were just impacted over and over,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Just horrible.
Yeah, this one was. And also, I don't remember this one.
I
Like
don't
when it
either.
happened. I don't remember
I
this
don't
being, I'm
remember
sure it
hearing about
was big
this.
news, but I don't remember it at all.
Me either.
Yeah, that being said, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
Um, Always an awkward transition.
Yeah.
But my perk of the week is that I had a pedicure tonight, and the
Mm.
lady just like rubbed my feet down. She
Oh,
just
the
she could I
best.
think could tell I was enjoying it. She just went like a little longer. And it was so nice. It just felt so good. And
Mm-hmm.
also my toenails were looking crusty. It looked like I had a French manicure on my toes just from like the polish growing out. You know,
Yeah.
like the last pedicure I had, like the girl like did not cut my toes down enough. Like she just
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a fan of that one, but this one, the girl she did me right. Did me right. It felt good. My toes look nice and pretty now.
Mm-hmm.
It's
That is
awesome.
lovely. I
Oh,
got a
so
pedicure this
good.
weekend for the first time in a very, very long time, and it was
Yeah.
perfection.
There's just nothing better sometimes, you know? Like
Yeah.
whenever you're like, I just want to sit here in this massagey chair
Mm-hmm.
and let my
Just have someone
toes
rub on my
yeah.
feet and soak my feet and scrape all
Yeah.
the gunk off my feet.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Dig out my toenail ingrowns. Whew. She got one tonight and it hurt. And she was like, I'm sorry. And I was like, I know it had to come out.
It's
It
okay, it
just
has to be
hurt.
done.
It just hurt. Um, yeah, but that is my perk of the week. Jacqueline, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that at the time you guys were hearing this, 4th of July was last weekend, which first of all, I got a lovely 4-day weekend. So that was very nice and very much needed. And we went to a little like 4th of July festival that had some like bouncy houses and some duck races and, just all kinds of fun little kid things that my daughter got to do. And then she got to see fireworks for the first time. And I was kind of nervous about how she would do with the sound, but she
Mm-hmm.
absolutely loved it. Like I had to cover her ears the whole time. We were also directly underneath them. Like you had to like lean your
Yeah.
head all the way up to like see them. But she was just like amazed. And it was also really funny. You'll enjoy this, Courtney. Like halfway through, she goes, "Yeah, so the movie's about to start." And I was like, "What is she talking about?" And then I
Oh,
realized she's
because
thinking of Disney
Disney.
movies. And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like that's her only like
Yeah,
association with
that is
fireworks.
so funny.
So yeah, it was really funny. But she loved it and she had a blast and has not stopped talking about them since. But it was just a lovely day and it started super early because they do like a 4K for 4th of July. So we went and ran that and then did some of the other stuff. And then we went back to my aunt's house and my daughter actually took like a 2-hour nap, which was lovely. So then
Mm-hmm.
we just laid on the couch and did a whole bunch of nothing. And it was nice
That's
to
always nice.
relax. And then she woke up and then we had dinner and ice cream and saw fireworks and just a perfect little summer day.
Yes. Always nice. Yeah, we could walk down to the park and watch like the
Hmm.
Knoxville fireworks, which was
Yeah.
it was nice. Then we could walk back and not have to sit in all that traffic, which is also nice.
Yes. It was also
So,
nice because we went to a little small town fireworks show, which was really well done. Like I was very impressed.
mhm.
But it probably took me less time to get home, even driving
Yeah.
way out where it was because of the traffic. So
Yeah.
it was very easy to get in and out, which is very nice for big events like that.
Yes.
So yeah, if you want to tell us your thoughts on this case, your 4th of July celebrations, tell us about your
If you knew that
pedicures.
Kalamazoo was not between Chicago and New York, I've been trying so hard not to laugh through the rest of this episode after that because this is a very serious, important episode.
Yeah.
But man,
It took us, I'm sure I cut out a little bit as well by the time you guys heard this because it took us
mhm.
quite a while to get ourselves together. So
Yeah.
I apologize if you guys were screaming at me at the beginning of this episode saying, "What the hell is wrong with you?" So,
Oh,
but you guys know where to find us. We are on all the places in the show notes. Just Google us. You'll find us everywhere. We are also on patreon.com/caffeinated crimes where we have plenty of bonus episodes for you. A new one coming out next week, I think, at the time you were hearing this.
yes.
Okay. I know Courtney has the calendar in front of her, so I always just guess and look at her to confirm.
Yeah. Well,
So,
it's so hard because I have to be like today's date, the
yeah,
release date, next week. Like,
exactly. You're like, okay, what's the, yeah, it's a
gotta
lot to
triple check.
compute. But yeah, so that'll be our 45th-ish, I think, episode.
Something like that. High 40s.
So, yeah. And we have other fun stuff over there that hopefully appeals to you guys. We got some stickers, we got some pins. You can chat with us on Discord. We got some video episodes. Just and let us know what you want to see, and we'd love to give you more of that and bring you on over to join us.
Yes. And if you can give us 5 stars on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, on anywhere that has a rating system, if you could just give us a high rating, on YouTube, you can like and comment, subscribe, any of that. Yeah, but in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.